Donald Trump is blowing up at his own generals as he tasked his generals and intelligence officials to come up with a plan, I kid you not, for Donald Trump just to declare once and for all a unilateral victory, remove all of our aircraft carriers away from the Middle East and pretend like nothing had happened, and then just see if the world can kind of sort itself out.
So MeidasTouch just exposed what's happening inside Trump's war room, and it's absolutely explosive. Military officials are breaking protocol to leak Trump's Iran plans because they're that dangerous. We're talking about generals openly defying a sitting president. This is unprecedented stuff.
To which Donald Trump's generals and intelligence officials said, "That's not going to work out, Donald. You know, you have to make a decision here. Do you want to escalate and send ground troops in and actually go back to a hot war? Or do you want to negotiate with Iran, Donald? And that means you have to make concessions. What is your choice? But just pretending that you won the war is not a solution here."
This is constitutionally alarming territory. When career military officers leak against their commander-in-chief, that signals complete breakdown of civilian-military relations. These aren't partisan Democrats. These are professionals who've served under Republicans and Democrats alike, now publicly warning America about Trump's recklessness.
And then Donald Trump is like, you know what I want to do? Let's just keep the naval blockade. And that's what we'll do. I won't say, unilateral victory. Just keep the blockade by the Persian Gulf. And we will exert more pressure that way. And then our generals are like, that's not going to work. And Donald Trump's like, that is going to work. We're just going to leave the naval blockade. How long are you going to do that for, Donald? Forever. It's not even going to matter until Iran blows up, right?
An indefinite blockade is strategic suicide. 20% of global oil flows through the Strait of Hormuz daily. That's $1.2 trillion in trade annually. Maintaining naval forces there indefinitely costs billions while achieving nothing. And Iran knows we can't sustain it forever.
So now American intelligence officials and our military generals and admirals are leaking to the press that Donald Trump's plan to keep a naval blockade in place for months potentially and do nothing and just see what happens, that's the worst plan possible. Of all of the worst plans, Trump may have picked the worst one.
When intelligence officials and four-star generals risk their careers to leak classified assessments, that's the ultimate red flag. These are people who've devoted their lives to national security, now warning the public because internal channels have failed completely.
So now, ironically, Axios, which has been propaganda stenographer media for Donald Trump, just literally posting whatever the hell he wants to manipulate the markets, they're now getting information from sources inside the Trump regime trying to leak Donald Trump's dangerous and catastrophic plans. U.S. officials are now telling Axios they're concerned about getting drawn in to a frozen conflict of no war and no deal.
When even Trump-friendly Axios reports negative stories, that's seismic. A frozen conflict means permanent military deployment with no diplomatic progress. Exactly what drained America in Afghanistan for 20 years. It's the worst of all worlds strategically.
Donald Trump figures out during the most catastrophic of moments, when people are suffering the maximum amount, that's when Donald Trump, the two-bit vile piece of trash, con artist that he's been, the scumbag that he's been his entire life, he feasts on people's suffering. And that's where he blames people. Who's going to be his Dr. Fauci? Who's going to be the person that he can put it all on? Why don't the arsonist put it on the firefighter? Who's going to be his former President Biden? Who's going to be his Jerome Powell? Who's going to be his James Comey, right? This is what this guy does. And he finds people suffering, and then he waits and waits. It wasn't me. And then he blames other people.
This mirrors Trump's COVID playbook perfectly. Create crisis, blame others, deflect responsibility. But international conflicts are harder to spin than domestic issues. You can't tweet away Iranian missiles or blame the deep state for allied nations cutting separate deals.
Trump will wait. We'll see if the blockade works. Not like the people here are suffering or anything. And then Donald Trump feels, look, Iran's facing economic pressure, so maybe they break. You think you're going to break Iran when after you engaged in the invasion with Netanyahu in Israel, they didn't break then, and Aragchi's hanging out with Putin right now, or he was hanging out with Putin this week while you were there, doing whatever the weird thing you were doing with King Charles, while you were hiding the bruises on your hand with the makeup, while you were grabbing Melania's backside on camera, while you were there just, behaving like a freaking monster and a weirdo.
Iran survived 40 years of sanctions after 1979. They're not breaking now. Meanwhile, Trump's personal conduct during King Charles's visit became international headlines, undermining American credibility precisely when diplomatic gravitas matters most for crisis management.
They probably by now have replenished all of the missiles that they've lost because their entire economy right now is working to prepare for a potential further escalation of this war. And they have a firm grip on the Strait of Hormuz. In fact, Donald, remember Prime Minister Takaishi from Japan and her visit to America and your visit to Japan where she acted all nice to you? Remember, she even helped you walk straight because you can't walk in a freaking straight line anymore? Remember that when you visited Japan? Well, guess what?
The Strait of Hormuz is the world's most critical choke point. Iran controls the northern shore completely. When allies start cutting separate deals, it proves the American strategy has already failed. Japan just demonstrated the blockade is worthless.
Japan just cut a bilateral deal with Iran that Foreign Minister Aragchi was basically bragging about by making social media posts to point out when Japan broke a British blockade in the about 60, 70 years ago or so, and how now Japan has cut a deal with Iran to be able to take Gulf oil, go through the Strait of Hormuz, and see you later, alligator. Japan's bringing their oil to Japan right now, and they're desperate for oil, but Japan cut a deal directly with Iran.
Japan's bilateral deal with Iran proves the blockade strategy is collapsing in real time. When key allies break ranks to secure their energy needs directly with your adversary, you've lost strategic control. Other nations will follow Japan's lead immediately.
Bring in the B-roll, guys, of Tehran Square, where tens of thousands of people, potentially over 100,000 people, every night now are out there basically partying and celebrating. They've got music. You want to see what it actually sounds like? Let's not even do the B-roll. Let me show you what Tehran Square looks like on every evening right now. Here, play this clip. And I'll show you another clip right here of just the music that they've got going. They are celebrating because in their mind, the United States has lost this war.
Public celebrations in Tehran signal strategic defeat for America. When adversaries party in the streets while your military leaders leak in desperation, global perception shifts permanently. This damages American credibility worldwide for decades to come.
Iran has destroyed the most powerful country in the most ever in the history of the world, has brought the United States down to its knees because Donald Trump is there frozen like a weak and pathetic ghoul where he doesn't know how to negotiate, and he's not going to further escalate because he saw what happens there. And that's where we're in no man's land, the Trump loop of chaos. That's where we are. I showed you the clip, right? So what else is Donald Trump doing right now as he's going ballistic at night, as the generals are leaking this information?
The Trump loop of chaos. Create crisis, freeze when consequences emerge, blame everyone else. It's the same pattern from COVID, January 6th, and now Iran. When your own generals leak classified assessments, you've lost control completely.
And now he's having the FCC go after ABC because Jimmy Kimmel told a joke. Jimmy Kimmel told a joke. So just think about it. These MAGA people, these MAGA losers who were all like, we don't like big tech censorship. How dare Twitter ban somebody on their private platform for spreading lies about vaccines or supporting insurrections against democracy? How dare Twitter do that? Now the government filed another criminal indictment against James Comey, this one for posting seashell photographs that say 8647 on Instagram. When 86 means to get rid of, it's, as you know, it's restaurant slang or bar slang. It doesn't mean to harm somebody. It usually means get rid of him, get him out of here, right? It's a common term.
While Iran controls critical oil routes, Trump's targeting comedians and seashell Instagram posts. The hypocrisy is staggering. MAGA screamed about Twitter censorship. Now they're using federal agencies to prosecute jokes. Completely backwards priorities during an international crisis.
No wonder Donald Trump's poll numbers are absolutely crashing. I'll do a whole other video on this, but the latest Reuters Ipsos poll has Donald Trump's approval at 34%. Donald Trump's approval on the cost of living, 22%. His overall approval, 34%. His approval on cost of living, 22%. But folks, you know, Donald Trump, dude's focused on all of the important things right now.
Foreign policy failures always crater domestic approval. Carter learned this with Iran hostages, Bush with Iraq costs. When Americans pay higher gas prices due to Middle East instability while seeing no clear strategy, presidential numbers collapse fast.
Putting his face on new U.S. passports. Yeah, what Donald Trump's focused on right now is new U.S. passports that are made. Donald Trump and the State Department would like to have Trump's face on all of your passports. Already, Donald Trump's face is all over the National Park Pass right now. It's a big photo of him and George Washington. So if you get your National Park Pass, you have to get this ridiculous photo. Coming soon, potentially, to your passport. When you just want to get a passport, it's going to have Donald Trump's face on it. Golden ballrooms, triumphal arches. He puts his photo all over buildings in D.C. And yes, the Trump regime right now is focused on an April 30 deadline to Zambia.
Putting your face on official government documents is textbook authoritarianism. Putin does passports, Xi does currency, now Trump wants American documents. While Iran controls global oil choke points, he's focused on personal branding and monuments to himself.
You will lose HIV medication. We will make sure that you all spread HIV and AIDS if you don't give us a mining deal. What? 1.3 million Zambians rely on HIV treatment funded through PEPFAR, important program. So you're saying that if we don't give you our copper, lithium, and cobalt reserves, you're going to not help the 1.3 million Zambians who rely on this HIV treatment that the prior program was helping? Yes, that's what we're going to do at America. America. I mean, what a sick regime. What a despicable group of people, right?
PEPFAR has saved over 25 million lives since 2003 under both Republican and Democratic presidents. Using HIV medication as leverage for mining deals isn't just morally bankrupt, it destroys America's humanitarian leadership globally, while Iran celebrates in Tehran Square.